Good morning. Welcome to All Quiet on the Western Front, Chapter 7, Part 2. We're going to be continuing talking about change in characters and in mood and in irony and in contrast. And there'll be other literary devices scattered throughout. I'll probably point them out. And we see ahead of us that Paul goes home after having been on the front for a while in terrible, terrible conditions and seeing a lot of death and having to cause a lot of death. And his mood through the author, Paul's voice and his mood through the author's use of literary devices is very evident. One of the things that's also evident in this part of the chapter is a very strong reference to nationalism and the contrast between nationalism and reality. So keep an eye open for that. All right, so we start on page 154. I lie down on many a station platform. I stand before many a soup kitchen. I squat on many a bench. Then at last, the landscape becomes disturbing, mysterious, and familiar. That's contrast. It glides past the western windows. And don't forget, we talked about Western and Eastern in literature as symbolic of different things. Because the sun rises in the east, oftentimes authors use it to make a subliminal message, a subliminal symbol of hope. And when we talk about the West, authors talk about the West, then authors are often talking about going towards an end or a death. So this Western idea here could be used as a foreshadowing tool. West windows with its villages, their thatched roofs like caps, pulled over the whitewashed, half-timbered houses, its cornfields gleaming like mother of pearl, simile, in the slanting light, its orchards, its barns, and old lime trees. The names of the stations begin to take on meaning, and my heart trembles. The train stamps and stamps onward. I stand at the window and hold on to the frame. These names mark the boundaries of my youth. Smooth meadows, fields, farmyards, a solitary team moves against the skyline along the road that runs parallel to the horizon. The solitary team means horses on a farm. Two horses guiding, a carriage on a farm or a tractor on a farm. A barrier before which peasants stand waiting, girls waving, children playing on the embankment. Roads leading into the country, smooth roads without artillery. It is evening, and if the train did not rattle, I should cry out. The plane unfolds itself. He's so full of emotion for going home. He's overwhelmed with seeing things that are familiar to him, and his body is trembling. He would cry and scream because he's so emotional. We can't say happy. He's just so emotional about going home. It is evening, and if the train did not rattle, I should cry out. The plane unfolds itself. In the distance, the soft blue silhouette of the mountain ranges begins to appear. I recognize the characteristic outline of the Dolbenberg, a jagged comb springing up precipitously from the limits of the forests. Behind it should lie the town. But now the sun streams through the world, dissolving everything in its golden red light. The train swings round one curve and then another. Far away, in a long line, one behind the other, stand the poplars, those trees he's been talking about throughout. Unsubstantial, swaying and dark, fashioned out of shadow, light, and desire. The field swings round on the train as the train encircles it, and the intervals between the trees diminish. The trees become a block, and for a moment I see one only, because they're all together. They look like one tree, and stand out a long line against the sky until they are hidden by the first houses. A street crossing. I stand by the window. I cannot drag myself away. The others put their baggage ready for getting out. I repeat to myself the name of the street that we cross over. Bremerstrasse. Below, There are cyclists, lorries, don't forget those are trucks, men. It is a gray street and a gray subway. It affects me as though it were my mother. So he's describing the streets as gray, which I find very interesting. Instead of them being a happier place, it's very gray. When the train stops and there is the station with noise and cries and signboards, I pick up my pack and fasten the straps. I take my rifle in my hand and stumble down the steps. On the platform, I look round. I know no one among all the people hurrying to and fro. A Red Cross sister offers me something to drink. I turn away. She smiles at me too foolishly, so obsessed with her own importance. Just look, I am giving a soldier coffee. She calls me comrade, but I will have none of it. So, Paul understands that the people at home really don't know anything. People are more impressed when they have to brag about what they do to help out, to give food or coffee, and don't really know what the fighting's about. Coffee is nothing to this man who's just witnessed so much. Outside in front of the station, the stream roars alongside the street. It rushes, foaming from the sluices of the mill bridge. That means sluices of water means lots of hard running water running underneath or in a stream or under a bridge. There stands the old square watchtower. In front of it, the great mottled lime tree, and behind it, the evening. Here we have often sat. How long ago it is. We have passed over this bridge and breathed the cool and acid smell of the stagnant water. Stagnant water means water that doesn't move, and when it's not moving, it smells really terrible, kind of like sewage. Stagnant water. We have leaned over the still water on this side of the lock, where the green creepers and weeds hang from the piles of the bridge. And on hot days, we rejoiced in the spouting foam on the other side of the lock and told tales about our school teachers. I pass over the bridge. I look right and left. The water is full of weeds as ever, and it still shoots over in gleaming arches. In the tower building laundresses still stand with bare arms as they used to over the clean linen, and the heat from the ironing pours through the open windows. Dogs trot along the narrow street before the doors of the houses. People stand and follow me with their gaze as I pass by, dirty and heavy-laden. So people in his town are staring at him. They're not saying hello, welcome back. They're just staring at him. In this confectioner's, we used to eat ices. Confectioner is a candy store or a place that has sweets. We used to eat ices, and there we learned to smoke cigarettes. Walking down the street, I know every shop, the grocers, the chemists. The chemist is a drugstore. The bakers. Then at last I stand before the brown door with its worn latch, and my hand grows heavy. I open the door, and a strange coolness comes out to meet me. My eyes are dim. The stairs creak under my boots. Upstairs, a door rattles. Someone is looking over the railing. It is the kitchen door that was opened. They are cooking potato cakes. The house reeks of it. Reeks is a word that's usually associated with something that smells bad. In this case, I wonder why the author uses the word reeks as opposed to something that Paul would look forward to when he comes home, the smell of all those potato pancakes. The house reeks of it. And today, of course, is Saturday. That will be my sister leaning over. For a moment, I am shy and lower my head. Then I take off my helmet and look up. Yes, it is my eldest sister. Paul, she cries, Paul. I nod. My pack bumps against the banisters. My rifle is so heavy. She pulls the door open and calls, Mother, Mother, Paul is here. I can go no farther. Mother, Mother, Paul is here. I lean against the wall and grip my helmet and rifle. I hold them as tight as I can, but I cannot take another step. The staircase fades before my eyes. I support myself with the butt of my rifle against my feet and clench my teeth fiercely, but I cannot speak a word. My sister's call has made me powerless. I can do nothing. I struggle to make myself laugh, to speak, but no word comes. And so I stand on the steps, miserable, helpless, paralyzed, and against my will, the tears run down my cheeks. My sister comes back and says, Why, What is that? What is the matter? Then I pull myself together and stagger onto the landing. I lean my rifle in a corner. I set my pack against the wall, place my helmet on it, and fling down my equipment and baggage. Then I say fiercely, "Bring me a handkerchief." She gives me one from the cupboard, and I dry my face. Above me on the wall hangs the glass case with the colored butterflies that once I collected. This becomes, if you look at the movie, if you ever watch the movie of this, butterflies, these are the butterflies he once collected, his youth, the beautiful butterflies that when you collect butterflies, you have to kill them or they have to be dead for you in order for you to put them in a case. And so this becomes an important thing. Listen for it. Now I hear my mother's voice. It comes from the bedroom. "Is she in bed?" I ask my sister. "She is ill," she replies. I go into her, give her my hand, and say as calmly as I can, "Here I am, Mother." She lies still in the dim light, and she asks anxiously, "Are you wounded?" And I feel her searching glance. "No, I have got leave. My mother is very pale. I am afraid to make a light." "Here I lie now," says she, and cry instead of being glad. "Are you sick, Mother?" I ask. "I'm going to get up a little today," she says, and turns to my sister, who is continually running to the kitchen to watch that the food does not burn. "And put out that jar of preserved whortleberries. You like that, don't you?" She asks me. These are whortleberries are a kind of berry that's used to make jelly or jam, like strawberry preserves or whatever. So oftentimes people in the country make their own preserves. "Yes, Mother, I haven't had any for a long time." We might almost have known you were coming," laughs my sister. "There is just your favorite dish, potato cakes, and even whortleberries to go with them, too." "And it is Saturday," I add. "Sit here beside me," says my mother. She looks at me. Her hands are white and sickly and frail. That means very, very fragile compared with mine. There's a comparison, a contrast. We say very little, and I am thankful that she asks nothing. What ought I to say? Everything I could have wished for has happened. I have come out of it safely and sit here beside her, and in the kitchen stands my sister preparing supper and singing. "Dear boy," says my mother softly. We were never very demonstrative in our family. Poor folk who toil and are full of cares are not so. So when you're not demonstrative, that means you don't say "I love you," you don't give hugs. It appears to be very cold, but it's the way the family works. That doesn't mean that people don't love you. It just means that that's not their way of expressing it. To demonstrate, to be demonstrative love is to, be able to just talk sometimes. Every family is different. Everybody has issues. Full care. It is not their way to protest what they already know. When my mother says to me, "Dear boy," it means much more than when another uses it. I know well enough that the jar of the whortleberries is the only one they have had for months, and that she has kept it for me. The somewhat stale cakes that she gives me too. She must have got them cheap sometime and put them away just for him. I sit by her bed, and through the window, the chestnut trees in the beer garden opposite glow in brown and gold. I breathe deeply and say over to myself, "You are at home, you are at home." But a sense of strangeness will not leave me. I cannot feel at home amongst these things. There is my mother, there is my sister, there my case of butterflies, and there the mahogany piano. But I am not myself there. There is a distance, a veil between us. I go and fetch my pack to the bedside and turn out the things I have brought. A whole Edinburgh cheese that Kat provided me with, 2 loaves of army bread, 3/4 of a pound of butter, 2 tins of livered sausage, a pound of dripping, and a little bag of rice. So he takes some of the things that are supposed to be for the soldiers and he brings them home to his mother. He makes a great sacrifice because he knows he won't eat them or other people won't be eating them on the front, but he brings them to his mother as a gift. I suppose you can make some use of that, they nod. It is pretty bad for food here. Yeah, it is pretty bad for food here, I inquire. Yes, there's not much. Do you get enough out there? And of course, the idea that during wartime, you guys don't know it well, but during any kind of wartime, frequently, especially in other countries, frequently there isn't enough food for the people who are at home, let alone the soldiers that are out on the front. Yes, there's not much. Do you get enough out there? I smile and point to the things I have brought. Not always quite as much as that, of course, but we fare reasonably well. Erna takes away the food. Suddenly, my mother seizes hold of my hand and asks falteringly, "Was it very bad out there, Paul?" Mother, what should I answer to that? You would not understand. You could never realize it, and you shall never realize it. Was it bad, you ask? You, Mother? I shake my head and say, "No, Mother, not so very. There are always a lot of us together, so it isn't so bad." So here in this very statement, he makes a sacrifice so that his mother won't suffer, but he can't tell her anyway because she wouldn't understand. And what he really indicates here is that there are a lot of them experiencing the same thing. He says, "I have my friends back there." So she said, "Yes, but Heinrich Bredemeyer was here just lately and said it was terrible out there now, with the gas and all the rest of it." It is my mother who says that. She says, "with the gas and all the rest of it." She does not know what she is saying. She is merely anxious for me. Should I tell her how we once found 3 enemy trenches with their garrison all stiff, as though stricken and apoplexy, against the against the parapet in the dugouts, just where they were, the men stood and lay about, with blue faces, dead. No, Mother, that's only talk, I answer. There's not very much of what Bredemeyer says. You see, for instance, I'm well and fit. Before my mother's tremulous anxiety, I recover my composure. Now I can walk about and talk and answer questions without fear of having suddenly to lean against the wall, because the world turns soft as rubber and my veins become brimstone. Again, another metaphor. My mother wants to get up, so I go for a while to my sister in the kitchen. "What is the matter with her?" I ask. She shrugs her shoulders. She has been in bed some months now, but we did not want to write to tell you. Several doctors have been to see her. One of them said it's probably cancer again. I go to the district commandant to report myself. Slowly I wander through the streets. Occasionally someone speaks to me. I do not delay long, for I have little inclination to talk. On the way back from the barracks, a loud voice calls out to me. Still lost in thought, I turn round and find myself confronted by a major. "Can you salute?" he blusters. "Sorry, Major," I say in embarrassment. "I didn't notice you." "Don't you know how to speak properly?" he roars. I would like to hit him in the face, but control myself, for my leave depends on it. I click my heels and say, "I did not see you, Herr Major." "Then keep your eyes open," he snorts. "What is your name?" I give it. His fat red face is furious. "What regiment?" I give him full particulars. Even yet he has not had enough. "Where are you quartered?" But I have had more than enough and say, "Between Langmark and Bixschoote." "Eh?" he asks, a bit stupefied. I explain to him that I arrived on leave only an hour or 2 since, thinking that he would then trot along. But not at all. He gets even more furious. "You think you can bring your front-line manners here? What? Well, we don't stand for that sort of thing. Thank God we have discipline here." Quite obviously, this guy doesn't know anything about what war is and how important one thing is over another. Again, an example of how the army has rules, and people who don't go to war in the army, don't understand what somebody else has been through. Because of the dogma, which are the rules of the army, there's a lack of compassion at all for what this man has just seen. 20 paces backwards, double march, he commands. I am mad with rage, but I cannot say anything to him. He could put me under arrest if he liked, so I double back, then march up to him. 6 paces from him, I spring to a stiff salute and maintain it until I am 6 paces beyond him. He calls me back again and affably, that means nicely, gives me to understand that for once he is pleased to put Mary before justice. So he'd rather be happy than have justice, than do the right thing. I pretend to be duly grateful, Now dismiss, he says. I turn about smartly and march off. That ruins the evening for me. I go back home and throw my uniform into a corner. I had intended to change it in any case. Then I take out my civilian clothes from the wardrobe and put them on. I feel awkward. The suit is rather tight and short. I have grown in the army. Collar and tie give me some trouble. In the end, my sister ties the bow for me. But how light the suit is. It feels as though I had nothing on but a shirt and underpants. I look at myself and there's a contrast between even the uniform and his home clothes. One is heavier than the other. To be a soldier is a heavy thing. It's a gigantic metaphor. I look at myself in the glass. It is a strange sight. A sunburnt, overgrown candidate for confirmation gazes at me in astonishment. So in that one sentence, candidate for confirmation means an 8th grader, but at the same time he's overgrown. So he still recognizes that he's kind of a child, but he's too big. He's too big now to fit into that ideal. My mother is pleased to see me wearing civilian clothes. It makes me less strange to her. But my father would rather I kept my uniform on, so that he could take me to visit his acquaintances. But I refuse. So his father, nationalistic, wants to take him around and be proud of him in his uniform. You know, again, another person at home not realizing what a terrible thing it is to be a soldier on the front and to see such terrible, terrible things. So even his own father doesn't get it. Just doesn't get it. But he refuses. Think about why he would refuse. It is pleasant to sit quietly somewhere, in the beer garden, for example, under the chestnuts by the skittle alley. Skittle is a game. It's like bowling, but it's smaller. The leaves fall down on the table and on the ground, only a few, the first. A glass of beer stands in front of me. I've learned to drink in the army. The glass is half empty, but there are a few good swigs ahead of me. And besides, I can always order a second and a third if I wish to. There are no bugles and no bombardments. The children of the house play in the skittle alley, and the dog rests his head against my knee. The sky is blue between the leaves of the chestnuts. Between the leaves of the chestnuts rises the green spire of St. Margaret's Church. This is good. I like it. But I cannot get on with people. In other words, he can't talk to people. He can't get along with them. He feels different. My mother is the only one who asks me questions. Not so my father. Here's another contrast and another generational difference. You know, what's the difference between generations, etc. Not so my father. He wants me to tell him about the front. He is curious in a way that I find stupid and distressing. I no longer have any real contact with him. There is nothing he likes more than just hearing about it. I realize he does not know that a man cannot talk of such things. I would do it willingly, but it is too dangerous for me to put these things into words. I'm afraid they might then become gigantic and I'd be no longer able to master them. What would become of us if everything that happens out there were quite clear to us? Isn't that ironic? What would happen if we really understood it? If we really let it enter our brains? You know, what the author's saying underneath is that we'd fall apart. If we really lived in the horror and the trauma of the time and of the moment, we'd completely fall apart. There'd be nothing left of us. So I confine myself to telling him a few amusing things. But he wants to know whether I have ever had a hand-to-hand fight. I say no and get up and go out. So he lies. He lies because he doesn't want to talk about it. And he finds it disgusting that his father would intrude on that very difficult part of it. And don't forget, he's only home less than a day. He hasn't even had a chance to recover yet. So any of this modern idea of therapy or chilling or, you know, getting help of any kind never existed in World War I. That just didn't happen. Totally different. You got to put yourself in the head of something other than your experience. But that does not mend matters. After I have been startled a couple of times in the street by the screaming of the tram cars, which resembles the shriek of a shell coming straight for one, somebody taps me on the shoulder. Again, this is what shell shock is. So all of a sudden noises at home sound like bombs in the war and you get startled, you know. Somebody taps me on the shoulder. It's my German master, my German teacher who teaches me German. And he fastens on me with the usual questions. Well, how are things out there? Terrible, terrible, eh? Yes, it's dreadful, but we must carry on. And after all, You do at least get decent food out there, so I hear. You look well, Paul, and fit. Naturally, it's worse here. Naturally. The best for our soldiers every time. That goes without saying. So this guy has bought the hype that the soldiers get better food than the people back in town. This guy is actually saying, incredible, right? Incredible, saying that it's worse in town than it is in the war. That he's believing the nationalistic hype that the government is taking care of the soldiers because they're so proud. Incredible, right? He drags me along to the table with a lot of others. They welcome me. A headmaster, a principal of a school, shakes hands with me and says, "So, you come from the front. What is the spirit like out there? Excellent, eh? Excellent?" I explain that no one would be sorry to be back home. He laughs uproariously because he thinks it's a joke, but that's the truth, isn't it? I can well believe it, but first you have to give the froggies a good hiding. The froggies are the French. The French have always been called frogs in in jokes. And hiding means to beat them up. But first you have to give the, do you smoke? Here, try one. Waiter, bring a beer as well for our young warrior. Unfortunately, I have accepted the cigar, so I have to remain. And they are also dripping with goodwill, that it is impossible to object. All the same, I feel annoyed and smoke like a chimney as hard as I can. In order to make at least some show of appreciation, I toss off the beer in one gulp. He drinks it in one gulp. Immediately a second is ordered. People know how much they are indebted to the soldiers. They argue about what we ought to annex, what lands we ought to take. The headmaster with the steel watch chain wants to have at least the whole of Belgium, the coal areas of France, and a slice of Russia. He produces reasons why we must have them, and is quite inflexible until at last the others give in to him. Then he begins to expound just whereabouts in France the breakthrough must come, and turns to me. Now, shove ahead a bit out there with your everlasting trench warfare. Smash through the Johnnies. The Johnnies are Americans, and then there will be peace. I reply that in our opinion, a breakthrough may not be possible. The enemy may have too many reserves. Besides, the war may be rather different from what people think. He dismisses the idea loftily and informs me I know nothing about it. The details, yes, says he, but this relates to the whole, and of that you are not able to judge. You see only your little section, your little sector, and so cannot have any general survey. You do your duty, you risk your lives, that deserves the highest honor. Every man of you ought to have the Iron Cross. The Iron Cross is an award or a medal that you get for fighting in the war. But first of all, the enemy line must be broken through in Flanders and then rolled up from the top. So what this guy is saying, this headmaster, is using his intellect, which he really knows nothing about. He may know about places and stuff, but he's telling the soldier who's actually there that the soldier doesn't know what he's talking about. That you may just see your little part, but you don't know, And so Paul says, nah, they got better stuff than we got. I'm seeing it. I'm there. And this guy's saying, no, you don't see the whole picture. You just don't see the whole picture. How disrespectful is that? That's just incredible. To invalidate somebody's experience and to not listen to him because of your own bluster and blow. He blows his nose and wipes his beard. Completely rolled up they must be, from the top to the bottom, and then to Paris. I would like to know just how he pictures it to himself, and pour the third glass of beer into me. Immediately he orders another. But I break away. He stuffs a few more cigars into my pocket and sends me off with a friendly, with a friendly slap. All the best. I hope we will soon hear something worthwhile from you. Give me just 1 second, I'm going to check something. I imagined leave would be different from this. Indeed, it was different a year ago. It is I, of course, that have changed in the interval. There lies a gulf between that time and today. At that time, I still knew nothing about the war. We had only been in quiet sectors, but now I see that I have been crushed without knowing it. I find I do not belong here anymore. It is a foreign world. Some of these people ask questions. Some ask no questions, but one can see that the latter are proud of themselves for their silence. They often say with a wise air that these things cannot be talked about. They plume themselves on it. And so here's a real contrast and dichotomy. The problem is that Paul needs to talk about it, but doesn't want to. And he's annoyed both by people who ask too much and the others who ignore it entirely because they don't want to deal with his issues. They don't want to disturb him, but really what they don't want to do is disturb themselves. It's like going to a funeral or having somebody in your family die and people not knowing what to say to you. So they say nothing at all because it's uncomfortable. So they either say nothing or they say the wrong thing or they say too much. At some point, grown-up human beings say to themselves, well, they just don't, they feel uncomfortable. So we understand, I'm a grieving person. I grieve a lot, So I understand when people can't say anything to me. I try and be compassionate about them. But, in the moment when you're just getting home from a war and you're a kid, on the one hand, you want some people to say something. On the other hand, you don't. On the one hand, you don't want them to say something. On the other hand, you do. So it's a very difficult situation. I prefer to be alone so that no one troubles me, for they all come back to the same thing, how badly it goes and how well it goes. One thinks it is this way, another that, and yet they are always absorbed in the things that go to make up their existence. Formerly, I lived in just the same way myself, but now I feel no contact here. So, the people at home are having questions or not having questions simply based on their own idea of things. They talk too much for me. They have worries, aims, desires, and that I cannot comprehend. I often sit with them in the little beer garden and try to explain to him, this is really the only thing, just to sit quietly like this. They understand, of course, they agree. They may even feel it so too, but only with words. Only with words. Yes, that is it. They feel it, but always with only half of themselves. The rest of their being is taken up with other things. They are so divided in themselves that none feels it with his whole essence. I cannot even say myself exactly what I mean. When I see them here, in their rooms, in their offices, about their occupations, I feel an irresistible attraction in it. I would like to be here too, and forget the war, but also it repels me. That means it makes me want to go away from him. It is so narrow. How can that fill a man's life? He ought to smash it to bits. How can they do it? While out at the front, the splinters are whining over the shell holes, and star shells go up. The wounded are carried back on waterproof sheets, and comrades crouch in the trenches. They are different men here, men I cannot properly understand, whom I envy and despise. So here's another form of contrast and irony. I envy them because they are ignorant and innocent of what really is bad, and I'm glad for them, but I despise them because I can't be them anymore, and because they don't understand me. So he really has no place. He feels nowhere. He feels comfortable. I must think of Kat and Albert and Mueller and Jaden. What will they be doing? No doubt they are sitting in the canteen or perhaps swimming. Soon they will have to go up to the front line again. And so we end this section of chapter 7 really understanding how Paul feels at home. And at the end of this section, he's almost not wanting to be home anymore. He wants to go back and be with his comrades, which he really doesn't want to do either. He wants to be with his friends, but he doesn't want to go back to war. So when we read the next section of this chapter, chapter 7, the last section, then we'll sum up what changes have come over Paul, what irony is there, what kind of contrast there is, what nationalism means really, and how Paul feels about it, and how other soldiers, don't forget, Paul himself is a symbol of what many soldiers go through. It's just his voice, and that's why the author used it. Okay, so we'll see it next time.